One, two, three, funky.
My darling, I love you, 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 I love you.
The Earth is facing a dual crisis of rapid climate change and biodiversity loss. A recent UN report on biodiversity estimates the global rate of species extinction is currently tens to hundreds of times higher than it has averaged over the past 10 million years. Traditionally, ecologists have measured biodiversity, a general term for the variety of species present in the biosphere, by taking into account both the number of species and their commonness. Biodiversity can be estimated at a number of levels of organization of living things. These estimation indices, which came from information theory, are most useful as a first step in quantifying biodiversity between and within ecosystems. Yet, they are less useful when the main concern among conservation biologists is simply the loss of biodiversity. However, biologists recognize that measures of biodiversity in terms of species diversity may help focus efforts to preserve the biologically and technologically important elements of biodiversity. The report estimates that as many as 1 million plants and animal species are currently threatened with extinction. That's nearly 11.5% of the estimated 8.7 million global species. Put in terms of the global human population, it would be like losing populations of US, Mexico, Canada, UK, Ireland, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Poland combined. Not only are the species themselves are at risk, so is everything connected to them. These species are all tied to intricate webs of life, serving purposes beyond their mere existence. The ecosystem services provided by diverse species are crucial to the survival of life within their spheres of influence, especially our own survival. Among other things, biodiversity supports food security, dietary health, and livelihood sustainability, provides important resources for medical research, plays an important role in regulating infectious diseases, has social, cultural, and spiritual importance, is essential for climate change adaptation, and can reduce disaster risk and support relief and recovery efforts. Human activities threaten Earth's biodiversity. First, the high rate of species loss is a direct result of human activities. Humans are altering trophic structure, energy flow, chemical recycling, and natural disturbances. Second, there are approximately 10 million to as many as 80 million different species in the world. Scientists have named about 1.5 species. The rate of species loss is estimated to be 1,000 times higher at any time in the past 100,000 years. Third, biodiversity has three components, namely genetic, species, and ecosystem diversity. Genetic diversity within and among population of a species is dependent on the raw material provided by the genes. If a population is lost, there is a reduction in the available materials used for adaptation to environmental change. Extreme decreases in genetic diversity endanger the survival of a species. Species diversity is the variety of species in an ecosystem and is popular scientific as well as political topic. The ESA defines an endangered species as one that is close to extinction in all or most of its range. The ESA also defines threatened species as those that are close to becoming endangered in the near future. Ecosystem diversity is described as the interaction of population of different species within an ecosystem. Removal or extinction of a species in an ecosystem can adversely affect the remaining species, particularly if the lost species is the keystone predator like a tiger. Biodiversity is vital to human welfare. Human activities are altering the biosphere at a rapid rate. These changes are threatening the survival of species on which we are dependent for survival. For example, humans depend on other species for oxygen, food, clothing, soil, and etc. Accordingly, 25% of the prescription drugs dispensed by U.S. pharmacies contain substances derived from plants. Accompanying the loss of biodiversity is the loss of potential benefit to humans. For example, in Madagascar, there are plants that have potential as treatment for cancer. Habitat destruction, introduced species, and overexploitation are the major threats to biodiversity. Habitat destruction by humans poses the single greatest threat to biodiversity. Agricultural, residential development, overpopulation, forestry, mining, and environmental pollution all contribute to habitat destruction. According to the IUCNR, habitat destruction is directly responsible for 73% of all species in modern history, becoming extinct, endangered, or threatened. The next threat to biodiversity is the competition between native and introduced species. Non-native species introduced either intentionally or unintentionally into a new community frequently fail to survive. However, when they do, the absence of their native predators allow their population to drastically increase. Biodiversity is also threatened when wildlife is harvested past the rate of repopulation. Some examples of species that have been drastically reduced in numbers through excessive human activities such as hunting, poaching, and commercial harvesting are the American bison, Galapagos tortoises, tiger, whales, and the North Atlantic bluefin tuna. Illegal wildlife trade also threatens many species. Pollution of the environmental compounds and its impact on other species. The biodiversity crisis is worsened by the pollutants that humans released into the environment. Pollution can have a local effect, for example, environmental damage that occurs during an oil spill. Likewise, pollutants can have a far-reaching effect. Air pollutants emitted into the atmosphere in one place can have effects on environment thousands of miles away. Never seen before, synthetic chemicals are causing a pollution crisis because microbes cannot degrade them and they are degraded into even more toxic substance. Mercury is a prime example of the latter point. Aquatic microbes convert mercury into methyl mercury, which are extremely toxic and accumulates in fish. Rapid global warming could alter the entire biosphere. Global warming has been accepted by most of the scientific community as part of their reality. Now the debate is centered around how severe the effects of global warming will be on the world. It has been said that carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gases together with methane and nitrogen oxide. It is released from fossil fuel burning, among other sources. Carbon dioxide is good, in moderation, but it is estimated that without the heat trapped by the carbon dioxide put into the atmosphere by natural phenomena, the average temperature of Earth would be at 2,188 degrees Celsius. Global warming results from an excess of amount of gases. However, some climatologists are predicting that at the current rate, the increase of greenhouse gases atmospheric temperature could rise about 28 degrees Celsius by the end of 21st century. A 28 degrees Celsius rise in global atmospheric temperature could melt polar ice caps and raise sea level significantly. Environmentally sensitive and heavily populated coastal regions would be flooded. Such warming may also alter precipitation patterns, and the grain belts of the United States may become much drier and unable to support crops. However, despite these problems, there are two ways to study endangered population and save biodiversity loss. The two ways to study endangered populations are the small population approach and the declining population approach. The small population approach states that the population reaches a critical level of smallness due to a variety of factors such as loss of habitats, then spiral down as in vortex toward extinction. The key factor driving the extinction vortex is the loss of genetic variation, which a small population depends on for adaptation to environmental changes. The declining population approach is proactive and tries to identify, diagnose, and halt a declining population before it reaches a critical level. This process requires careful, logical approach to determine the cause of the decline before recommending corrective actions. There are some ways to conserve biodiversity and prevent biodiversity loss. First, government legislation. Second, nature preserves. Third, reducing invasive species. Fourth, habitat restoration. Fifth, captive breeding and seed banks. 6. Research. 7. Reduce climate change. 8. Purchase sustainable products. 9. Sustainable living. 10. Education.
I think I'm losing my mind, trying to stay inside the line.